Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DMV Business Show. I'm your host, Otto Sevilla, and today we have a special guest, Kelly Ennis, founder and managing principal of the Verve Partnership. Welcome, Kelly. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. If you can actually explain to the audience, just general terms, what is the Verve Partnership before we go into your story?
The Verve Partnership is an integrated interior architecture firm. We focus on how space, culture, and brand impact the built environment from the inside out.
Okay. So it's mostly just interior, nothing as far as exterior with architecture there.
So we do a lot of concept development from the outside in, but that's more high-level concept work as it aligns with brand. We are not architects from the outside in. We like to focus on the inside where the people are. We spend 87% of our time indoors, and so does our firm.
Sure. Now, as far as your focus, is it hospitality? Is it multifamily, office?
Mm-hmm. So we are 100% commercial. Our sweet spot is in workspace strategy and design. That is about 90% of our work. Over the course of the last 2.5 years, we've expanded our verticals into multifamily, both market rate and affordable, in addition to a little bit of senior housing.
Okay, great. So I assume for multifamily, you're designing, of course, the common areas.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
For office, same thing common, or are you also working on with individual tenants and companies as far as designing their office space, their interior space?
So we actually do both, but the majority of our work is tenant-focused work, organizational. We really hone in on the organizational development and the strategies with our clients, the real estate strategy, the organization strategy, the marketing strategy, and how that really all feeds a really great design and supports the business of the organizations that we work with. We also apply that kind of same process and kind of that line of thinking within our other verticals as well.
Okay, great. So now that we have a general idea as far as what you do, if we can go back from the very, very beginning as far as where you grew up, where were you born? Are you from around the Maryland area?
So I grew up in what once was middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. It is now quite a really amazing growth story of, I grew up just south of Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Oh.
And Allentown is actually doing some really amazing things right now. They're just top 10 growth cities. Their population has risen. They're kind of like a sleeper little bedroom community to serve the New York City area, North Jersey. So just a really cool story about how Allentown has changed over the course of the last 30 years. So it's pretty sweet. That's
interesting. I would say I think we, out of maybe 40% of the interviews we have live here at the show, about 40% are people from Pennsylvania that are now living in DC, Northern Virginia, and Maryland. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. I have to go back and kind of take a listen again.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's a great place to grow up. It was fine, but like I said at the time, it was very rural. And so I moved to Baltimore to come to college back in the mid '80s. So I've known what I've wanted to do since I've been 8 years old. I'm one of the lucky ones. I guess.
That is lucky.
I got my first set of Lincoln Logs when I was 8 years old, and I say that I've never looked back since then. I was set. Lincoln Logs set the tone, and from that point on, 8 years old, I knew I wanted to be in design and architecture, and I did everything I could to get there. I had a fantastic and very influential art teacher in high school who helped get me to MICA here in Baltimore City. So I went to MICA in my degrees in interior architecture. So that's the short beginning.
At 8, a lot of people have different interests, people playing with dolls or planes, and like you said, even Lego sets, you name it. Mm-hmm. But I'm curious, why at 8, obviously that interests you, but what made you sort of stick with it, or you knew that? Was there any other influence besides you liking that at such a young age?
Yeah, I guess a lot of that was because of my dad. I grew up in a house that he renovated for our entire existence there. He showed me how to use graph paper. when I was, 8 years old or whatever. And I've always been able to read a plan very intuitively and picture it in the third dimension very quickly.
Oh, wow.
And I just loved it. It's really just, throughout the course of my career, which is now about 25 years in, I could be in real estate. I could be within an organization. Like, I have so many amazing opportunities, but I just really, really love design and really, really providing that service to help other people build community from the inside out. So I like working with and learning about other organizations. So I love what we do on this side of the service provider standpoint. It's really fantastic. And I say, my dad was a big influencer, but even to this day, he's since passed, but I still don't think he really understands what we do.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I don't think he ever really quite understood that you could make a job out of it. He understands what technical architects build buildings, but what do you do on the inside? So,
he wasn't into the design. He just did that on his time off as a hobby, as far as work in the house. And then you saw that.
He loved it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He was a creative, but he was in outside sales and, whatever you're supposed to do when you're in, it's the 70s and the 80s, raising a family and stuff. So, but yeah, he understood, but I don't think he understood that you could actually build a company from the inside out, really focusing on the interiors. So
you started with graph paper and you're drawing and sketching. And then you said in high school, did you say there was a teacher there that sort of pivotal and helped you?
Yep.
Okay.
So I was one of the art kids in high school, and getting into art and design school is not an easy feat at all, especially at that point in time. We didn't really technically have computers really guiding us yet. It was really more about craft and design strategies. And she was, exponential in helping me build a portfolio, helping the process to get into college, to design school, is really very portfolio generated. You have to have an actual interview. At that time, again, it was the 80s, so it was a face-to-face interview. And really just kind of honing in on, design skills, both fine art and design. Most art schools have what is called a foundation year. So you take all your basic drawing, communication classes, sculpture, life drawing. So it's really just a foundational year before you head into your major. And she was just really exponential in getting that portfolio set, identifying what colleges had the path that I wanted to go into. And here at MICA, Maryland Institute College of Art, it was just a really good fit. It was a city, I grew up near Philly, so Philly wasn't far enough away for me, quite frankly. And neither was New York, because Allentown's pretty close to New York as well. And coming here for an interview was really just fantastic. A small design school, maybe 2,000 people at the time. And and then Baltimore just really stuck. I really kind of dig Baltimore.
Did you know back then, going into MICA, as far as what you wanted to focus on?
At that point in time, it was more about more general.
Okay.
And design, the interior design and interior architecture education has changed drastically over the last 25 years. So they didn't actually have a focus per se, but I knew based on what I saw in, like an interior design magazine, Architectural Record, and those kinds of magazines, I knew what I wanted to do and where I wanted to focus. So really they give you the tools, right, in school to figure out how to take that next step. And it's really about being resilient and really, finding the firms and finding the organizations that where you can do your best work. So I say I took the 6-year route because I wound up graduating a little bit after than I quite frankly should have. But there was a recession in the early 90s. And so it took a little while to actually get through kind of the degreed aspect of what I had going on. But, I wound up moving around a lot and, just got really lucky in moving to Los Angeles in the mid 90s.
After Micah?
After Micah, I kind of moved to Key West and hung out and was a waitress in Key West for about 3.5 years. Yeah.
Okay.
I had a working vacation there, and I would just waited out the recession of the early 90s.
Good vacation,
Margarita. Yeah, it was 3 years long. And so then I came back. Yeah, go ahead.
Kelly, and Micah, your bachelor, you majored in what, just arts, or what was?
My degree, I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Interior Architecture.
Okay. So then you're done with that. We're in a recession and it's hard to find employment. So you decide, let me go to Key West, and you head down there for about 3 years.
For 3 years.
Okay. But you're always thinking, I want to go back. I obviously want to be in the field of what I majored in. And And then from Key West, you go to LA, to Los Angeles?
Yep.
Was that move, you had something there already lined up, or?
No, I followed a boy.
Okay.
And he's now my husband, so it all worked out.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
House. Yeah, so it's awesome. Yeah. So it worked out well. And I wound up being really fortunate in Los Angeles. It was busy. The economy was great.
I'm curious, did you meet him in Key West?
No, actually, I met him in Baltimore.
Okay.
I met him in Baltimore before Key West. It's really this lovely, weird kind of story. But I knew him before Key West, but we started dating after Key West. And moved to LA. And so I got really lucky, and then started. I worked at Smith Group for a little bit while I was out there, and ended my LA tenure having worked at HOK for about 6 years while I was out there before I moved back east. So I had a really great baseline from an economy standpoint, from a design standpoint, clearly working at both Smith Group and HOK. Some of my greatest mentors and friends and colleagues are still people that I met when I was at HOK. So that organization holds a very special place in my heart.
What type of works and projects were you working there in LA?
So that's a fun question, really. Because it's LA, right?
Yes, that's why I was asking.
Yeah, so I got really, really lucky. I got to work on a couple of MTV projects, which was really cool. Went to the MTV Awards, and so that was really cool. At the time, they had just bought Comedy Central, so worked on restocking Comedy Central before, at their infancy, like we're talking, late 90s, early 2000s. We have a couple of original SpongeBob animation cells from the animation department, which is kind of cool. So lots of entertainment kind of spaces. I also got to travel a lot for a lot of banking institutions while I was at HOK. So that was really cool. And
traveling within the country or international?
Just within the country.
Okay.
With a lot of banking institutions, traveled for IBM as well, and just really got to see a lot of really great cities across this country. And it was fantastic, and I learned so much. It was so valuable.
Why'd you leave LA?
So we got married. We wanted to have a kid, and the house that we were living in was $1 million and smaller than the office that I'm sitting in now. So it was a math equation.
That's LA.
And that's LA. So we moved. My husband is originally from Baltimore, born and raised, as a lot of people here are. So we had just had a child in Los Angeles, and we just decided that the commute and the cost of living there, it wasn't going to cut it. So we moved back east.
Did you still have family also around Allentown, Pennsylvania area? Or no?
No, not family. No, everybody's since moved on, but we now have an office there. We actually
I meant when you moved from LA back to Baltimore, did you also have family around Pennsylvania?
Oh,
still?
yeah.
Okay, so that was still closer to home then. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Yeah. My parents actually still lived in the area. Again, longer story, but yeah, my parents still lived in the area when we moved back east. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's good. So you moved to Baltimore, and then you have something already here, or? Yep.
So I moved back to Baltimore. So I'm very fortunate. I've had some really amazing opportunities and some amazing jobs. So having worked at HOK, I moved back to Baltimore and worked at Gensler here in Baltimore for a little bit. So that's really, I'm quite proud of working for both those organizations. And then then worked for a firm in Philadelphia. I was hired to start their interiors group here in the Baltimore area. And that was really right around the recession of 2008-9, pick a year, 7-8-9.
Sure.
So I was with them for 3 years. It was a firm in Philadelphia, but I worked out of the Baltimore office. I started the Baltimore Interiors Group. But as soon as the recession started hitting, they moved my job up to Philadelphia, which was fine because I like Philly. But I started commuting a lot. So I was commuting 3 days a week from, Baltimore Penn Station to 30th Street Station in Philly. And it just got, and then, baby number 2, and then it just got to be a little bit too much. And
were you coming back the same night, or were you staying there overnight in Philly?
No, I was going back and forth.
Oh, wow. That must have been hard.
Yeah, it was hard.
Yeah.
And then, this recession got worse, and I just decided, so I say what suspiciously looks like a midlife crisis. The year I turned 40 was this moment of, I think I can do this better. I think I can do this my way. I've had some really great, you take all the great things that you learn and you get rid of all the bad things that are just like kind of just noise, right? And you just get rid of it and you just kind of put all that good stuff together. And I was like, I've got a lot of really good stuff. I think I can do this on my own. So what I never recommend to anybody is doing what I did is I basically up and quit my job one day and started the company. So I say I started with negative cash flow. So when you start with negative cash flow, you can only grow positively. And that was 11 years ago.
11 years ago. Okay.
11 years ago in the September, but it is September. So we're coming up on 11 years.
Kelly, when you made that decision, how long were you going back and forth to the Philly office?
It was about 3 years.
Wow.
Back and forth. No. It was about the back and forth piece. It was about a year. Yeah.
Okay. That's still a good amount of time.
Yeah, it was a good amount of time. So, I had some really fantastic projects up in the Philly area. So that was nice. But it just got to be a little grueling. And I was like, you know what, if I'm going to do this, I would rather be doing this for myself at this point than somebody else. Right. And if I think I can do it better, or take all of these really good things and, mash it up into something like cool and fun that I really love doing. And it wasn't that I didn't love the projects and design and everything that I was working on. It was just, I think I can do this better.
Sure.
So
do you think, when you went with the company that was based out of Philly and they hired you to open their Baltimore location, that experience, you were with that company, you said for 3 years overall?
Mm-hmm.
But that experience of basically establishing a brand new office from zero, do you think that helped you establish and think, hey, eventually I can probably do this on my own. I'm doing it right now just for some other firm.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It was absolutely 100% influential. I say, right, wrong, indifferent, good, bad, ugly. I really learned a lot from that experience on somebody else's dime.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what that was. I mean, it was everything from starting up a department to doing business development to running financials. We actually expanded our office here in the Baltimore office. I was responsible for that, hiring. So yeah, it was a lot crammed into a very little time.
How big did you grow that Baltimore office before they got sort of consolidated again?
Well, yeah. So that was the timing was really bad. I think it was about 4 people. So 0 to 4 people in 18 months. But it was 0 to 4 people, and 0 revenue to $1.2 million in revenue in 18 months. So I knew if I could do that for somebody else, I could probably do it for myself.
So how was it then 11 years ago, year one, you hanging your shingles and now it's your shop, it's your firm?
Yeah. So it's the coolest thing ever. It's the coolest thing. It's just fantastic. I say I used to do a lot of asking for forgiveness while previously employed. I don't need to do that anymore. And I encourage our team to ask for forgiveness all the time, because I think you really should always do what's right. Right. So if you feel the decisions that you are making on behalf of your clients and your projects, if you feel those are right, you should do them. And I will support you. Not 5 principals up the food chain have to approve this, whatever. is no, and we're small for that reason. We're small for that reason purposely. Like it's you know, like I said, zero to negative cash flow, sitting in my basement with my husband, with two small children running around, you know, in 2009. It's like I think about this and I'm like, oh my God, that was crazy. Like who quits their job with toddlers and you know, just randomly starts an organization in the middle of a recession? So that would be me. And so we hung out in my basement for 5 years. We grew it to 6 people. Learned a lot about the kind of the financial piece of that, you know, how much you need to run a business. So we actually practiced what we preached from a real estate standpoint. Like, we didn't need the real estate. We only had 5 people. We could function remotely. We've been remote ever since. That's from the very beginning.
Okay.
So this transition means it's not like this was not a big issue for us.
Sure.
because
You're used to it.
we're totally used to it. So we grew. When we got to 6 people, we got our first office space. And, you know, we've been as large as 14 and as small in that kind of growth time frame, as small as like 8, 9. So we're about 8, 9 people right now. And it's a really good, with between 8 to 12 people, I can still touch everything. And that's really important to me, that, you know, I can touch our clients, I can touch our people, you know, stay connected and build those relationships. I think that's the most important thing that any one of us can actually ask for. And that is the number one, you know, kind of business, you know, advice that I could give to anybody is just, you know, build the right relationships and be true to your word, and you will be successful.
And I'm sure that helped out when you first established your own company, as far as those existing relationships, you just reached out to them and then the relationship continued now with your firm.
Yeah, that was a lot of coffee. Yeah, that was a lot of coffee and a lot of wine. That first year is just meeting with people and really trying to understand where the holes were in the marketplace. Like I said, I had already had a good chunk of time while employed elsewhere, but you never really can really pinpoint where you might, you know, fit in, or what services that you can offer to differentiate yourself. So it was a lot of, it's not a joke, it's a lot of coffee and a lot of wine.
Was there a particular project, Kelly, that comes to mind, you running your company, that sort of was a game changer for you as far as a trajectory and then just going up?
Yeah. So we've actually had a couple of game changers. And I think from a growth perspective, they're pivot points in your organization, right? So our very first project was for Volunteers of America. We earned that project on the basis of a nonprofit organization called the 1%. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It in and of itself is a nonprofit that we, on the, you know, interior design, architecture, real estate, marketing, brand, we agree to give back 1% of our time over the course of 2,080 hours, so 20.8 hours. So we donated our time to Volunteers of America to help them with their Chesapeake headquarters down in Lanham. And that was kind of our jumping off point. Like I said, zero cash flow. It was really just a marketing effort. How can we build a body of work that is meaningful and build relationships at the same time? And Volunteers of America really fit that. They had a need, and I was able to fill it, you know, as a sole proprietor at that point. And then that was successful. Kind of had a little small projects here and there, but then our biggest, and I would, you know, say our second or third project was a 150,000 square foot restack for Penn Mutual headquarters up in, again, it was a relationship from Pennsylvania, in Horsham, Pennsylvania, and it was a 6-year project. A renovate in place, 150,000 square feet, 750 people, really envisioning how their changing brand and demographic was impacting their workplace. They had just elevated one of a woman. There is the first woman CEO, or the only woman CEO in the organization, and she was in a meeting with her facilities person, and she was talking to the facilities person and saying, look, we say we are this organization and we care about people and we care about families and we care about detail. We're a life insurance company. We are there for people at their at their most dire moments in their lives. And she said, and I'm looking at my furniture and my carpet and my wall covering, and the wall covering's fraying and the furniture doesn't match. My carpet is dirty. She said, we need to renovate this entire building. And through relationships, and his name's Bob. He was awesome. I knew him from past life, and he called and it was like, okay, perfect timing, Kelly. We think we've got a project for you. I said, okay. So what started off as a kind of a very slow, hey, let's take a look at, we call it just kind of, some just upgrades,
Sure.
Let's change some paint, maybe some carpet, turned into an organizational brand and space restack that lasted 6 years. So a lot, and they swung in place as well. So it was a very, very large feat for a very small company. And, we nailed it off the bat. So that was huge for such a small and young organization. So that was really, really quite amazing. And we saw the project all the way through to the end until Bob retired, and we're still friends to this day. But that was 4 years ago. Yeah.
That project, Kelly, started with just something small from what you're telling me,
yep.
right? And then it just led to continue. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, so it was pretty cool. So it gave us it gave us the ability to hire more people to go out and earn more work. And again, kind of going back on the power of relationships, from that point, we then started working with the Allegis Group on a lot of their corporate real estate, not the, we weren't doing the tech systems and the aerotechs. We were working on the headquarter buildings in Hanover. Again, a relationship, a guy that I knew kind of from the commercial real estate world, became their director of real estate. So we worked with them for about 3 or 4 years. So again, another long-term relationship turned into long-term projects. And then from there, we worked on a couple Under Armour projects. So it's this really lovely kind of, as I'm talking about it, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, I'm not quite sure I actually put them all together. And then in 2012, a huge game changer for us, and we still work in this market. I absolutely believe we are experts in the innovation space and co-working space, but we did the first true co-working space here in Baltimore before anybody knew what co-working really was. So that was Betamore at 1111 Light Street, which then turned into Betamore at City Garage a couple years later. So again, these total pivotal types of projects that I don't think were really on anybody's radar, from co-working. What's co-working in 2012? Nobody here was really doing true co-working, and that was a privately funded. The first one was privately funded, and they knew what they were doing. They knew what the ideas were. They were very solid on their business plan, their marketing plan, their brand plan, their community plan. And we designed the space to align with all of that. So I look at that as both a design project as well as a strategy project. So again, that was kind of pivotal in our trajectory. And then, which then also led to Harkins Builders, which was just really, quite frankly, a huge game changer for us, given who they are in the region. What we did a full-blown strategy with them too, all the way from organizational development, all the way through space strategy. They had a great team. They had a great vision. It's what we do is a team sport, right? So that was really a pivotal project for us.
Were the majority of these projects, seems like a lot of them were relationship based, or at least started that way. Is that the case? Mm-hmm. Or okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I frequently say, 99.9% of our projects are, relationships, referrals, and repeat business. But I'm really, it's 100%. Basically, we have gotten to where we are because of the relationships that we all that have been able to build over time, and because we do good work, and because we show up when we say we're going to show up, and we roll up our sleeves and we get the job done, and that's where those referrals come from. So
what would you suggest for people who, obviously, to build a relationship, to establish it takes time, for any business. And if someone wants to build their business based on relationships, like you did, for example, what are some pointers that they can do, or just at least think about when going out to the marketplace and doing so? Just
yeah, I think I'm going to use an overused word simply because I can't find another one right this second. Be authentic about what you say and what you do. And if you can't do something, admit it, or bring on the right people, like, to complement your skill set, so you can do it, what you can meet the needs of the client. But for all of our projects, we need to establish that relationship first. And then let's figure out what the project is.
okay.
I could show up and like, it could be oil and water, right? So it's really, really trying to understand, I'm a big 7 habits person. Seek first to understand, right?
Yes.
So I think of, we've not known Visit Baltimore as an organization or as a group of people very long, but cherish the relationships that we have with their CEO, COO, and their CFO, along with their entire project team. Like, we just got to know them over time, but it came with a call. It all started with a call. That was a referral. And it was, just build those conversations and those nuggets over time, because you have to earn people's trust. I mean, what we do, this, what we do, it is not inexpensive. Building out a space is not inexpensive. Buying furniture is not inexpensive. Leasing real estate is not inexpensive. So we take that level of trust very, very seriously, because we're helping them make decisions that are going to impact them for a very long time.
You mentioned earlier the project in Pennsylvania. Are most of the projects that you work on are based in Maryland or Maryland, DC, Virginia, or are they nationwide, or how does that look?
So oddly enough, the majority of them they're regional, but between Baltimore and Allentown. They're not really, like Columbia, Maryland.
Yes.
Is, that's Baltimore to me. And Volunteers of America, that's in Atlanta. We start at the top of the Capital Beltway,
Okay.
495 and north.
Okay.
But we are actually working on a project right now in Buffalo, New York.
Oh.
Another innovation center. So we'll go where people need us and where we can help.
Because was that a referral to Buffalo?
Yes, it came from the innovation work that we do.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is. And Buffalo is a really, really cool town. I love it there. And it was never cold when I was visiting. It's an innovation center for the University of Buffalo, and it's still under construction. So I get at least 2 more trips out of it.
Okay.
So.
Do you have an office in Pennsylvania? You mentioned earlier about another office.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We actually opened up more of a business development office in Allentown about a year or 2 ago. We were kind of flying under the radar just to kind of see what the market was doing and checking out. We have a small little office space in a co-working facility up there. And this first quarter, January, February of this year, it was going to be our best year ever. And we went ahead and we formally announced our opening of our Allentown office February 20th of 2020. And 3 weeks later, we all went home. So timing is everything, right?
Yeah.
But it's okay. It's all good.
Are they still there working remotely, or what's going on with Allentown?
Well, so it was more about business development. So I was going to be spending a lot more of my time up there from a business development. I hired a marketing person, actually, who is working in marketing up in the area. Actually investing in the area more so than what we were investing. And really, it just, the whole COVID thing just kind of put us at a little bit of a standstill, but have a couple of really great networking events I've done virtually with Crew, the Chamber of Commerce, a couple of different smaller, more curated groups. So we'll get there.
Okay. Speaking of COVID, how has that affected your business?
So it's tanked it, to be honest with you.
Sure.
We live in the world of commercial interiors, right? And here
Yes.
I am sitting in my office. I'm the only one here. But you got to figure out where those pivots are. Thankfully we diversified our markets. A couple of years ago. So we still have a couple of corporate projects. The corporate projects that we have, I mean, here's the thing. And again, this as well as I do. It takes about 9 months to a year to actually build out a space, right?
Yes.
I would like to think in 9 months to a year from now, there will be some sort of therapeutic or vaccine or some sort of something that has addressed the public health issue that we're going through right now. So the corporate clients that we are currently are relocating their offices, that's kind of their mindset as well. So we've got, but the big commercial projects that we had first quarter, they all came to a standstill and have been put on hold. But we're small, we're nimble, we're 8 people. I don't have 2,000 mouths to feed, and we were really lucky. We got some really awesome grants. One of which I'm most proud was an educational grant. We were able to train and educate our team, and it was $50,000 to train our team. So our team is going to be crazy Revit savvy. Aaron and I are taking the MCR.W credentialing class with Cornet.
Yes.
We're 2 people are going to be well certified. So it's $50,000 of free money to train your team. That's a pretty cool thing.
That is.
So.
Is that a local thing? Is that local?
It was for the state of Maryland. It was part of the layoff of, it's called the layoff aversion fund.
Okay.
And part of the fund, you only had pick 10 things, that you want to allocate these monies to. And I chose educating our team. So,
Okay.
and we got, that was pretty cool. So we're good for the moment.
You mentioned everything was at a pause and a standstill, and I felt it the same way, being in commercial real estate. What I have noticed is maybe the past 2 months, definitely volume has picked up tremendously. I mean, tours to lease getting executed and deals getting done now.
That's
I would
great.
say
Good.
office is the lagger. It is lagging. It's mostly a lot of more industrial deals getting done. But there are some people that put a pause and have the conversation with me have started to pick back up again as far as touring and taking a look at spaces and sites. Are you still feeling the pause from your corporate clients, or?
It's just different. And I think it's going to stay different. We live in that world of strategy. So we are having a lot of strategic conversations with those clients whose stuff got put on hold.
Okay.
So one of them paused till January. So it's actually a couple things. So one of them paused till January. One of them ditched completely. The other one is still, it was more of like this building consolidation restack, but it was 160,000 square feet. I don't think they need 160,000 square feet anymore. They may have before, but now we're trying to work with our clients to really talk to them about what is the next generation of work. Because I think you have to define that generation of work before you can actually start defining the square footage requirements of what that work can support.
Yes.
So that's kind of the world we're living in at the moment. And we, because of our strategy background, we already have a lot of web and online tools, surveys and things. So we've actually just added a layer of COVID surveys to really work with our clients to understand what are their not only just their real estate needs and how they work, but what are your people's requirements? Like, do you have to work from home 3 days a week because you have 2 kids who are in school and they're not going back until January, right? Or maybe, so it's really kind of taking that holistic vantage point of how do you work, where do you work, why do you work, and then what kind of square footage do you need for that? So we're working with 2 of the 5 hung on for the long haul. But like I said, we're small, we're nimble, and we're responding. So.
How is that conversation as far as the next, like you mentioned, I think you said next strategy of workplace now due to COVID? What do you foresee And I know it's sort of, we're maybe in the beginning and middle of this. How do you foresee the next workplace changing? Like, how is that conversation you're having with your corporate clients?
Well, I think it's different for every client, and it's different for every market sector. There is no one size fits all, and there is no one solution that fits all. I think it's very specific to the culture of each organization that we're talking to. So, and it's going to vary based off of the demographic. I think if you have a staff or a team of people who are between 25 and 45, they're going to be a lot more willing to be flexible in how they work, or the requirements of those work, where it's now there's 5 generations in the workplace, and you still have lawyers who want private offices, right? Who
Yes.
your 65, 70-year-old lawyers who still come in every day. They still want their 300-400 square foot office. So I don't think everybody's going back into an office. People are like, oh my God, everybody's going back into the office. That's not, that would be far too expensive. And we're not going back in time. This is not a time travel experiment. It's a wake up call to address some things that I think people missed along the way. So I'm not of the opinion that we should have ever been in benches and cramming people in corrals just to get more efficient in our real estate, because look at what happened to your health with having that many people, right? So now you're going to have like a bunch of, germaphobes kind of running around in 6 feet. But yeah, I think it's an individualized organizational decision. And I don't think square footages are going to change. They're going to drop a little bit, but I don't think that's going to be this massive swing to, 50% less people.
Mm-hmm.
So
what you hear in the media is not always right.
No.
Yes.
No, I think it's like everybody just needs to calm down and just take a breath and take a step back and figure out what you really need, not this go. It's, there's always that, time kills all deals. Well, maybe those deals meant to be killed, right? Like, let's make the deals the right deals for the right reason, for the right organization, every single time, and just take a step back and do it right. Let's just do it right the first time.
I agree. At least hopefully there's a deal to be done. And even if there isn't, there will be one day.
Right. You've made a friend.
Yes.
Right.
Like
made
you
a
mentioned,
friend.
In our business, it's a lot relationship based. So if this time doesn't work out, there will be a next time if you do everything right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier, as far as it's been a positive thing that your company is nimble, but not everyone that does what you do is in the same position. What have you heard as far as other counterparts that have a much larger company? How are they dealing with things?
So I think so I was chatting with a friend of mine who works in New York for a larger firm, and a lot of their corporate commercial interiors people jumped over into healthcare. They were kind of dispersed through other markets.
Okay.
So S&T, right? S&T, healthcare, hospitality, multifamily. They kind of like took their corporate group and dispersed them very quickly into other markets, or they got laid off. A lot of the survey data from like May was most firms, and we're right there with them. 50%, like 50% of your revenue just stopped. But 50% of our revenue is not near 50% of a larger firm's revenue. Mm-hmm. So layoffs, pay cuts, furloughs. It's the same. I'm thankful to not own a very large firm for that reason. We've not laid anybody off. We're still moving.
That's good.
And literally, even like as of today, I said to our operations person, I'm like, we could even be in a position to hire in the next month and a half.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's good. It's good to say that, considering.
Yes. You were also mentioning that from the very beginning, you were always very remote. Is that still the case? How has it affected, your organization? Is everyone right now, I know you mentioned you're the only one in the office currently. Is everyone is currently remote? Do you foresee that long-term continuing this way, or maybe a hybrid, you personally with your company?
So for us, it's definitely going to be a mishmash, because we have Each person is different. We do have one designer who has 2 small children that she's got to negotiate. How are they going to teach their children, at least till the end of 2020. But my operations person, she's I told her she's losing her desk. She does not need to be sitting. I mean, she's usually sits right here next to me. But we have not missed a beat at all. Like, we literally, we closed a week before everybody else. Okay. We were able to mobilize very quickly, set up a lot of protocols of how we were going to deal with ourselves culturally. I think it's waning on me. I like people. I like to be around people. I like to know that Abby's sitting there and Carly's sitting here. That's just me being selfish. I will be in the office. I mean, I come in every now and then. But I'm going to leave it up to our team, to be honest with you, because we can actually function, which is going to really change the shape of our space and how we either sublease it, reconfigure it, turn it into a social experiment from a kind of a workplace standpoint. The jury's still out on what we're actually going to do, but again, we can be nimble. Okay. And it's a really awesome little space. We're not downtown, so we're not paying these exorbitant, class A, B, or C. To be honest with you, class A, B, or C rent structures. We're just kind of in a cool little warehouse in the Woodbury neighborhood of Baltimore, and our rent is really reasonable.
Oh, so you're like in flex space?
No, it's literally, it's an old warehouse, and there's a lot of warehouses in and around. Like, there's one right there, there's one right there, there's one right there, and there's like 3 over there that have all been converted into office or office retail. It's just kind of like this very mixed use kind of quirky little neighborhood in Baltimore. I mean, it's just quirky, and it's the building. There's like a creative services firm who leases space there. Behind me is an ATIV and data security company, and then a brewery is at the end of the run.
Oh, it's a good mixture of tenants.
Yeah, it's cool.
What would you say, Kelly, that motivates you or drives you with the business?
The relationships, meeting people, forming long-term bonds. Yeah, it's like brainstorming. I was with somebody today before this call and met him at his space, a nonprofit, met him on a random networking call. And it was just a great conversation, and I left inspired. I like being inspired, and I like to inspire other people with crazy ideas. Yeah. And I literally, as of my emails here to my left, and he's just like, thank you so much for coming down. I appreciate your help, blah, blah. It's just really, I like to help.
Yeah. That one-on-one human interaction. I agree.
Yeah.
What's the thing you're most proud of thus far in your business career? Anything sticks out?
I don't think there's any one thing that sticks out. I still always go back. My default is relationships, because I don't think anybody, like, you will never be anywhere without the power of relationships and the people that you meet along the way. I think that is the most important, and I can't stress that enough, to our team, to my family, to people that I meet. But I think it's the thing that sticks out to me is that I was trusted along the way to do things, and I want to be able to give that back to other people.
That's nice. What if someone were to start off today? Well, not today with the COVID. If someone were to start off in a regular economy with a similar type of business, what advice would you give that person?
Love what you do, because it is hard. Like, if I did not love this, like, I love what you do. I mean, it's hard. It's hard running a business. Design is hard. And life is not easy. So love what you do, and success will follow.
I agree. It's always tough with most businesses, and you're not going to love every single thing. There's things you're just like, you're going to dread. But overall, though, if there's more positives, I agree, than negatives, and you enjoy certain aspects of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that concept of the grass is never the grass is never greener. It's just a different shade of green.
What would you say right now is the biggest challenge for the Verve partnership?
We're going to be in rebuild mode. I think we're not starting from scratch because we're starting from, 11 years into it. And we have money, so we're not negative cash flow. But I think it's rebuilding, and I think it's rebuilding. I say rebuilding, but what is next? Status quo is not working. And we're not the status quo firm, but we always want to be ahead, like doing the next crazy thing, right? So I want to know what the next crazy thing is that we can do, that where we can make a difference and move a needle. So good. I think that's the next challenge. Yeah. We just literally, we may be working on a virtual reality space with a Fortune 500 company. So that's going to be a fly-through animation with for a convention, which is kind of cool.
Wow.
Right?
That is cool.
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. But we're literally we had a conversation yesterday and trying to get the data and figure out what that agreement looks like.
That's interesting.
But and even if we don't, like, how cool is that? Like, that is a really, like, designing virtual space for events. Like, that's pretty cool.
Have you ever tried VR? Have you ever put a headset on?
Yeah.
I did that.
It's pretty cool.
It is very cool.
Yeah.
As far as what do you know now, Kelly, that you wished you would have known back then at the start of your career? And is there anything you would have changed?
I would not have changed a thing. I'm very, very adamant about that one. I would not have changed a thing. I think I just got really lucky. I had some great mentors who really guided me along the way. So I wouldn't change a thing. I think you learn something new every day. So, like, to try and pinpoint, like, what I wish I wouldn't have started with negative cash flow. That was not the smartest thing in the world. Like, no business plan, no marketing plan. It was literally, I was pissed off. I quit my job and started a company. Like, that is one thing I may have done a little bit differently, but not too drastically different.
But you know what? You took action, though, because I know there's some people out there, and not all of them.
I took action.
Yeah, because there are a lot of people out there. What is it? Paralysis by analysis, and then they retool the business plan. But you just said, "Forget it. Let's go." And
let's go.
It worked out in the end, though.
Yeah. It's because I love what I do.
Yeah.
So,
You mentioned just now mentors. Do you have, who's a big mentor that comes to mind, and what did you learn from that person?
So it's a series of 4 people from HOK for very specific reasons. So Susan Grossinger was she was our leader in our department, in our interiors group at HOK. And I learned most, every single business decision or move or business development, anything, I learned from Susan. She was very, very business savvy. She ran that department, and she was not a designer. I really appreciated that Susan ran a design department and she was not a designer, because she made really good business decisions. And I learned a lot about the business of design because of Susan. Brett Schwery and Pam Light were also principals at HOK, and Brett's fantastic. He is amazing with relationships, amazing, just a really good guy. He's now over at AECOM, and he's just fantastic, just personable and very relationship driven. And they all were very relationship driven, but just inspiring and connected. He easy to connect with, really easy to connect with. Pam Light was their director of strategy in the LA office, and everything I know and love about strategy I learned from Pam Light. And then Sarah Devine was my PM go-to. So I learned a lot about project management from Sarah Devine, and at any given moment, I still talk to them all at any given point, at least every other month. And this is, 15, I've been back here 15 years. So 15 years later, I still have fantastic relationships with each one of them. And I'm like, oh my God, what would you do? And I think combined, you know, all four of them have influenced me the most.
That's great that you still have that. You can still go to them. Are they all still based
Yeah.
out of LA?
Yep. Yep. And I feel very lucky that we're in such a small little industry that every time there's a convention, I know I get to see at least one of them.
That's cool.
So, yeah.
I know you mentioned earlier that right now it's going to be rebuild mode for you, but what do the next 5 or 10 years look for you? What's the vision?
So I'm not really quite sure anybody should plan 10 years in advance, but I think that the vision stays the same. You know, just do great work with great people, but really kind of spinning the space around what is the next generation of space. And I think we're still trying to figure that out. And I think it's gonna stay that way for a while. And we're trying to figure that out now as a team. I mean, again, we're lucky enough that we can take this time to pivot and figure out what that is. So this thing that fell in our laps yesterday with the AR VR, that's kind of pretty cool to explore. You know, where we're developing an app for, which is a little bit different than everybody else's apps, because I know that they're out there, to collecting the data on how COVID is going to impact the next workplace. So I think it's really moving into a technology role, technology and design that go hand in hand. We've completely migrated over to 100% Revit. So that's been a really amazing tool for us from a technology standpoint. So, you know, you can spit those renderings out and do a fly through, you know, quite easily. And then, you know, here's to turn it into that experience. So really, you know, what is it? What's the experience, and what's the workplace looking like in the future?
Nice. Last question, Kelly. What do you like to do for fun in your free time?
I spin. If I wasn't doing this, I'd be a spin instructor.
Spin bicycle.
Spin. Yep.
Yeah.
Spin in place.
Okay.
Yeah. I spin every day. So I, like I said, what the firm was started and would suspiciously look like a midlife crisis. So I was either going to stay in design and do what I'm doing right now, or I was just going to scrap everything and just be a full-time spin instructor. So this worked out in my favor, and I did I am a certified spin instructor.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. I don't teach because this is enough. But
yes.
So I spin every day, and I love it. So I spin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Where can people find you as far as websites or anything else if they want to reach out to you?
So we're at the Verve Partnership on most social media. We're at Verve Vision on Twitter, and you could pretty much Google Kelly and the Verve Partnership, and I usually come up pretty quickly, unless the former CEO of Saab pops up, because her last name is Kelly Ennis. So
Kelly, lastly, Verve, V-E-R-V-E, is there a meaning to that? Where does the name come from? That's a good question.
Yeah. So not the band. It's because that's always the running thing. But it's my favorite question. The word Verve means energy and enthusiasm, and in its archaic root, it means talent. And I think we have all of that here within the organization. And it's part of our DNA. So we love what we do, and we are really good at it.
I love that. How did that name came about? Is there a story behind it? Did you always have that word in back of your mind, or?
So no, so a friend of mine who's a brand strategist, and I sat down when I quit my job, and we're trying to come up with a name. She developed all of our logo, and brand materials, identity materials, and we went through about 2 days worth of word finding about who are you, Kelly, and who do you want to be. And it was Verve and Moxie were the short lists.
Okay.
And Verve won out.
Awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Kelly, thank you so much for coming on to the show. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. This was fun. This was really great. Thank you.
It was a fun time. Thank you so much.
Good. All right.
Bye. Take care. Thank you.
All right. You too.